For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dlamini, a change agent for the marketing landscape within the sub-Saharan Africa. Musa Kalenga joins me to discuss his book titled Ladders Trampolines. Welcome, Musa.
Thank you very much, Sane.
This book titled Ladders Trampolines, can you please tell us how the idea of this book came about and who should be reading this book?
Well, the idea was a collection of stories, anecdotes about my own personal and professional experience, from starting a small business to moving into a slightly bigger enterprise and then into corporate South Africa. So some of the things that I experienced from a marketing perspective, some of the professional journeys that I went through, but also a lot of the mistakes that I made, because I believe I've followed a non-linear route to where I am. So I think people who try and read this book are those that are interested in the discipline of marketing, but I also think young people that are professionals trying to craft their careers, trying to understand potentially some of the dynamics they're experiencing in the workplace, relating to management and where they come from, and just to get an alternative view on, as I said, the route to success.
You are a marketer and a strategist who built a successful business at the age of 26 from zero to a remarkable 6.5 million turnover. Your book introduces us to Ladders and Trampolines model to aspiring entrepreneurs. Tell us about the successful business that you built at that young age, and what does the Ladders and Trampoline model entails?
So the business I built, I was a student at Wits, and I finished my undergrad at Wits. And in my third year, I got together a number of my friends who were from many places. So some of them were from outside South Africa, some of them were from inside South Africa, and myself being born in Zambia, I was very curious about the lives people led when they left campus. So during holidays, everyone would go to their respective homes. And through that process, we'd started a business at the time that essentially allowed us to share files and share photos across the web, just for us to understand and see when people take pictures and upload them what they're doing in their respective countries. And that was essentially where the enterprise started. It then changed quite drastically. I started doing a lot more research and data collection. So we started using mobile devices to collect research, short forms of research. So we'd ask young people 5 questions and they'd give us answers quite quickly, and we'd send them airtime. And at the time, that model was quite revolutionary because data wasn't being collected that way, and young people weren't being engaged from a research perspective in the mobile fashion. So that's where the idea started, and that's where the business started to do, and that became a consulting model. We went to banks and we went to a lot of FMCG companies, and we are able to provide them insight very quickly, and we're able to give them recommendations on their brand strategy and what they were thinking about doing in the market. And as I said, it was at a time where the research and the strategy space needed a little bit of a shake-up and a bit of disruption. And that's pretty much what the foundation of the model around Ladders and Trampolines is about. The fundamental notion that most choices will either be a ladder choice or a trampoline choice. And a ladder choice, as the name suggests, is that it's incremental. You'll be an intern, then you'll be a junior manager. Then you'll be a junior manager, you'll be a senior manager. Then a senior manager, and you'll follow, kind of the ladder. And that's okay. There's a lot of people who are that way inclined. But the opposite is that as a young person who understands their value and their worth, you can actually also understand that you can have these trampolines, which are probably fewer and far between. But if you understand how to identify them, if you know what value you bring to a scenario or an equation, a trampoline with the same effort that you'd put on a ladder to go to the next step can take you to the next level. So, and the principle is just using that to ascertain business relationships, personal relationships, and how you approach the world that we live in.
You also mentioned that you wish you know something then that you know now. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, I think what I wish I knew then is that we don't have to ask for permission to do impactful and valuable things. I think I speak about it a little bit in my book about the notion of the African mentality of seeking permission, number one, and number two, seeking a lot of recognition for minimal effort. So I wish I knew then is that you actually, if you're building something of value that people can actually use and delivers real impact in their lives, you don't need to ask for permission. You don't need to go through the steps of trying to validate your own idea if you truly believe it's going to work. And as young people, I think when you're young and you're courageous and you're bold and you don't have that much to lose, I think those are the years in which you need to be experimenting and taking on those risks, and knowing very well that you're adding value.
You've also told us something in the book that is very interesting. You're saying good is the enemy of great. What does that mean?
Yes, I mean it's a business theory around if you are simply aiming just to be good, and you happen not to be good, and you miss the good, you're going to be less than good, which is not a good thing, and that's the enemy of being great. So if you aim for being great and you don't become great, then at least you'll be good. The same notion about shooting for the moon, and if you miss the moon, you're going to at least be one of the stars, is how we should be orientating the businesses that we're building and encouraging young people. Is that if you're just looking up, to be good and to be average, then you'll be just like everybody else. But the real value is going to be coming if you're going to be challenging what is traditionally and accepted as good and try and make it great and amazing.
In 2012, you were voted as one of the top 200 young South Africans by Mail and Guardian newspaper. What challenges have you encountered along the journey?
There've been a number, and I think I used to think accessing capital was a challenge, and I think it's a fictitious challenge now. I think for small businesses that are adding value and have got a business model that works, I don't think it's difficult to find capital. But typically, when I was younger and I was kind of coming through the ranks, I used to have that as a challenge. We didn't have the resources. I don't come from a family that had a trust fund per se. So that was, I think, a fictitious barrier. The second thing is being able to get the right network of support. Whether it is family, whether it's network colleagues, whether it's professional support. Often the journey of an entrepreneur is a lonely one, and often it is difficult to find people to help you in the times where you need help. So I think those are some of the challenges, but I think predominantly for me, it's been a real internal journey of discovery. And the bigger challenges were kind of undoing certain mental constructs that I had, undoing the way I was thinking about the world, realizing that if I'm going to spend my time and energy trying to make 100,000 Rand, I may as well spend the time making 100 million Rand. And those are all kind of mental constructs that I had to pretty much, grapple with, and I still grapple with. So I think those were more the challenges for me, but there were some structural challenges along the way as well.
You also spoke about the issue of getting the right mentorship.
Yeah.
Why is it important for someone to get the right person?
Well, I think it's key. I mean, every time I've had a mentor and I've had a business challenge, the reality is I could spend 2-3 years trying to figure out the challenge and get it wrong, or pick up the phone and call someone who's done it before, and within 5 minutes have a good perspective and an understanding of what to do. I think it's once again the notion of ladder trampoline. So yes, if you're a diehard and you want to figure everything out and you want to grapple with problems, and go right ahead. But mentorship really gives you kind of a fast track into knowledge, into experience, into a different view and alternative understanding of your business. And I think that's always valuable, because you need to always be testing and checking what you're doing.
Do you think our government in South Africa is doing enough to help young and aspiring entrepreneurs? Absolutely not.
So I think there is an intention, and the intention is not followed through with implementation. The intention, that is, popular rhetoric around young people being involved in the economy, popular rhetoric around creating the industrialists of the future, popular rhetoric around township economies. That's all essentially trying to speak to inspiring a generation of entrepreneurs. But when you look at it critically, essentially what is happening is that they're creating systems and processes like incubators, where they bring small businesses into these spaces, they give them some coffee and free Wi-Fi, and they incubate them, right? And then you wonder, are people actually getting through the door? An incubator is not supposed to be a place you stay for 3-4 years. It's a place you stay for 12 months, you get rapidly skilled and supported, and you get stretched so that you can get out the door quickly. And I don't see that happening. I see a lot of businesses going into these incubators, and I don't see a lot of them coming out. So that story is not closing the loop. I also think there's procurement and enterprise support that needs to be provided to small medium businesses. So if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. So if you're creating businesses and you're supporting them and you're incubating them and you're throwing money at them, what are you doing with your procurement policies to be able to give them work and to pay them on time, etc., etc. So I'm not one for handouts, but I do believe for good service provision, there should be a fair price paid to the small businesses or youthful entrepreneurs.
So Musa's book is an honest account of experiences that encourages thinking big, dreaming broad, and having exponential impact. So going back to the WEF Forum 2017, our President Jacob Zuma said, young people needed to partake in all spheres of society, including politics, like him, because he started at the age of 20, I believe. So do you think that statement is appropriate?
I think it's appropriate, but it's a big statement. It's a very big statement. One of the key themes of the World Economic Forum was this notion of inclusion. All right, and inclusion is, how do you fundamentally create an environment that draws people in? And from that perspective, the statement that the president has made requires us to understand: is the environment ripe enough for young people to feel drawn? And that's why I think it's a big no. I don't think young people identify with a lot of organizations. I don't think they identify with the government. I don't think they buy into vision, and I don't think they see a vision. And in the absence of that, young people will be proactive and they'll do their own thing. That's what young people do. It's been proven time and time again in history. The challenge is that when young people aren't being led and they don't buy in and they don't feel drawn, and they do their own thing, that's then considered them being irresponsible, reckless, and going against the grain. So I think it's a give and take. I think the government has got a huge responsibility to create a vision that young people actually buy into, understand, and can participate in. And in so doing, you'll see participation. The participation will probably be low in the beginning, but over time it'll become more inclusive. And until that point, young people will define their own narratives. They'll create their own opportunities, and they'll do so in a huge and unconventional way. And that's where I think the conflict often comes in, is that when young people do what they do on their terms, and it's not understood and it hasn't been seen before, it's perceived to be odd, or it's perceived to be destructive, but they are just doing something in the absence of being drawn into a system that allows them to participate.
So what can we expect from you in future?
A few things. So I'm hopefully working on another book, which I'm excited about. So that's one thing. I'm back in the entrepreneurship space. So I'm building an advertising technology business for small, medium businesses and small agencies. So we are well underway in terms of development there. And I'll be doing a number of speaking and keynotes. And I'm also spending a lot of time in education around digital and helping businesses get online, understand what to do and how to make it work. So so I'm doing a number of those as well.
So speaking of digital, why are you so passionate about digital marketing?
Well, I think there's a few things. So I mean, firstly, the concept of digital marketing I've challenged for a number of years, and I actually fundamentally believe the idea of digital marketing is dead. I believe that we are now marketing in a digital context, which is vastly different from digital marketing. Digital marketing is that division in the corner where the people dress funny and they come up with crazy things. But marketing in a digital context is hard as all of it integrate together to be able to drive value in enterprise. So I think at my core, I believe that Africa is at a point now where if we understand the power of technology and we understand mobile and we get the fact that at the intersection of technology and humanity, that's where the real magic happens, I think we'll then be able to unlock opportunities. I think that's going to be the key for us to be able to see the change you want to see in Africa. I believe fundamentally that the mobile device is already started to drive this change. And I think that if Africans embrace technology and they embrace what comes with this digital label, there's a hell of a lot of value to be unlocked, and I think we're right in the beginning of that journey. So if we don't own it, unfortunately it's going to be owned by someone else, and that's why I'm quite passionate about it.
Thank you very much for your time, Musa. That was marketer and strategist Musa Kalenga speaking to Crema Media's Polity about his book titled Ladders and Trampolines.